Okay, so we are the last panel of today, and I can already see the networking has begun. It's like a cocktail session already. It's 5 o'clock somewhere. All right, so good afternoon. My name is Akanksha, and welcome to the very last panel of the Singapore Maritime Week. So have the organizers save the best for last. Let's see. Okay, as the title, thank you. As the title suggests, it's a conversation, so I'm going to try and keep it as conversational as possible. I'm sure we're going to have a very spirited discussion, and I'm sure the MC has already introduced you to the pigeonhole system, so please plug in your questions. Like the other moderators, I don't have to be cognizant of the time. We are the last panel. So please plug them in, and I'll try to get to them. And so we've got a very diverse panel here today, isn't it? So some of them have dealt with warships. Some of them are seafaring. Some had their final university examination yesterday. Some have dealt with governance policies. And some are investing in maritime tech companies. I won't leave you guessing. I'll let them get to it and explain more about what they do. So for the first question, to kickstart, I'd like to ask everyone to share a little bit about yourselves and share your career journey, or what your predicted career journey may look like, and what has inspired you to pursue a career in this industry. So I would like all to answer, but maybe I can just start with Puneet all the way at the end.
Well, thank you so much, Akansha, and all the panelists. And thank you also to MPA and all the organizers for a fantastic event. I think all of us should give a huge round of applause for what this event has been. 20,000 people, probably 50-odd events. So a round of applause to everybody who has been involved in this. So it's been a privilege to be a part of this and part of Maritime Singapore for many years. So my entry into the industry is one of those traditional routes. I think Akansha might also recognize that. It's that you have some family members in shipping. So my uncle has been in the ship agency business for the last 40 years. And he encouraged me and then my elder brother as well to come into the shipping industry. But he also told us that while he did not take any entry-level qualifications, he wanted us to at least go and do the Institute of Chartered Shipbrokers course to start off our journey in maritime. So I actually went and did my ICS qualifications way back in 1992 in UK, and then did my first job in pressure shipping in Bangkok, a ship owner for 4 years. And I still remember the first time I thought, I've already done this ICS course. I must be pretty cool now. They'll be giving me a lot of responsibility as soon as I walk in. They basically didn't let me touch any commercial role and told me that you have to do operations for the first 4 years of your career. I think that set me a great foundation in terms of what my business understanding of I'm not a seafarer, so obviously I had to understand how the ships run, what ships are all about. And then I decided, just to give you the journey, I decided that I want to continue in this industry. I went and did my master's in shipping, trade, and finance from CAS Business School, now called Bayes Business School. Then I've been working with an operator, a ship broker, a ship owner, a trading house like Noble. And then I came to Klaveness in Singapore. And I really want to talk about this part of my journey because things really opened up as I came to Singapore in a very different way. 2009, we had the crisis. Klaveness was forward-looking, and they asked all the employees to reskill themselves. And I actually pursued my LLB along with my job from University of London's campus here, which Klaveness sponsored. So kudos to Klaveness, and thank you to Klaveness for helping me reskill myself during that crisis time. And then on, I've been getting involved in transformation space. I was head of their digital transformation. And then I moved on to run the Singapore Chamber of Maritime Arbitration. And as Akansha mentioned, I'm also now an investor. I'm also a guest lecturer at SMU. And I'm vice chair of the ICS branch. I teach the students there as well. So I do multiple things, all about passion. But what is interesting is I've kind of seen multiple pathways where I've actually been able to touch point these industry in my own way. And that is what makes this industry unique. You can build your pathway in the way you want to go in this industry. It's not a very straightforward way or a stagnant way of doing it. It's dynamic, it's very useful, and it's something which touches every person in this world. We are doing something which actually helps every single person on the planet. And that pride is something that drives everything that we do today and ever in the shipping industry. So that's my journey. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Puneet. So inspiring already, actually. Aaron, how about you? By the way, for those who don't know, Aaron's reputation is preceding him today. He's the one who was mentioned by Miss Caroline. So please, Aaron.
Okay, thank you, Akansha. I also want to thank the organizers for giving me this chance to represent the seafarer role in this Singapore Maritime Week. Yep. So for myself, I'm a seafarer. I graduated from Singapore Poly at 2013. I started sailing as a cadet since 2011. I currently hold a COC Class 1 issued by the MPA Singapore, which enables me to be a captain. So how I actually get into this career was actually quite straightforward. Was at the end, almost at the end of my O-levels, I was actually introduced to this open house that the schools were bringing the students to. So just I was exploring for my what I want to do in the future, and I encountered this booth that was manned by one of the captains. He's also here together with me, Captain Savio, who actually shared with me his very interesting life as a seafarer. And after that, actually I went home and did even more research about the maritime industry, about what is needed. And I found it that it resonates with what I actually wanted deep in my heart. Singapore as an IMC and Singapore as a country where we depend heavily on the maritime connections with the rest of the world, we need to have talents that is here to support this role. And I feel that I can be part of this very vital supply chain, which has also proven in the pandemic time, where the seafarer role was greatly highlighted by the media for the things that the seafarer has carried out. So, yep, that's a little bit about myself and how I was inspired to join this journey. Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron. Thanks. Now for Hui Ting.
So hi, I'm Hui Ting. So before I start, I would like to thank MPA for inviting me here today to talk on the same panel as all these amazing professionals. I don't know if you were able to guess, but I'm actually the person who completed their last examination yesterday. My whole university life, so adulting life is coming for me, but so I think for me, what inspired me to kind of join the maritime industry was actually during my internship in Polytechnic. So I was actually doing a role under air freight operations. But I think during that time, I got a chance to kind of speak to a lot of people from the sea freight side. So I got to know how extensive as well as all the opportunities available in the maritime industry itself. I think those were the main reasons that kind of pushed me to pursue a job in the maritime industry. But I think before I pass it on to Kenneth, I wanted to mention about how I realized that there's actually 3 kinds of people that actually join the maritime industry. I think after going through so many internships and encounters with people, I think the first is people who kind of like know about the industry because of their mom or dad worked in the industry, their uncles, aunties, or whatnot. I think the second group of people who are those who actually fell in, maybe not because by choice, but more by chance. And then I think the third group of people are people like me who kind of somehow randomly, naturally found out about the maritime industry and grew a passion and decided to pursue it. And I hope that as we kickstart this panel today, that we'll be able to kind of address more ways that we can kind of like attract the third group of people into the industry, because I believe that the maritime industry has a lot to offer. Yeah.
Well said. Thank you, Hui Ting. Now, Dr. Kenneth.
Once again, thank you very much for having me here at the panel. So similar to our first panelist, Puneet, so I was also influenced by my uncle when I was young. So be very careful, when somebody passes you an article to read or a magazine. So what happened was he's a seafarer. So every 3 months, he was seafarer with NOL back then, now CMA, CGM. So every time when he come back, he will just sort of like pass me the magazine on shipping companies. And it's just fascinating because back then when you look at the photograph, the horizon that you could see out in the sea is just different. So since young, I was always captivated. And I told my parents I want to sail. But being the only son in the family, I think you all know, right? So my parents said no. So I said, okay, the closest I could get to is to do ship design. So I decided, instead of going to the A level, I decided to go for the Polytechnic to do ship design and offshore engineering. And true enough, I was fortunate to be given scholarship. And then fast forward, I was able to work in ST Engineering Marine. And as what Akansha mentioned, I was very fortunate to be able to be working with advanced technology. So I was able to design and do technology transfer for the Singapore Stealth Frigate, and still the most advanced warships in Singapore right now. But what I would like to share is actually the amazing diverse opportunity within the industry. Because the whole maritime industry is a huge ecosystem, so it needs to be supported by all the way from finance, legal, insurance, to classification society, to ship repair and ship design. And I'm sort of like in the technology area. And what I can tell you is that even in my own journey, I was able to be rotated from planning to project management to engineering design to business development and to merger and acquisition, which is a very interesting rotation. And I was even given an opportunity to transfer from the marine business to aerospace business. But eventually what drew me back to entering the university is I noticed I will be given an opportunity to nurture the future talent for the maritime industry. And I thought this is actually the journey I'm taking on right now. But I would just like to have a show of hand who are 35 and below here. Sorry that if I'm checking your age. Okay, don't worry if you are too shy to raise your hand. Okay, because today the youth is like conversation between youth and industry. I find that if you are already in the industry or if you are entering the industry, this is an exciting industry because it's plugged very closely into the global business. And I really urge you to stay on. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kenneth. Thank you. Okay, so Dr. Cleopatra, your journey, please.
Works. My journey, wow. Now, I've had quite a journey. And my journey was one that started very early. My mom died. My mom, with 11 children, she left. She died quite early. We've 11 children. And so my dad could not get married anymore to anybody else because he had so many children. So as a result, education was the key. So I was very fortunate because my father was an educator, and he made sure that we all went to high school and then, of course, went on to university. I would say that I am extremely fortunate. I had scholarships all my life, to start even to go to high school, finally to do my master's degree. Also, I had the great fortune to get scholarships from the Swiss government. So I did my first degree, my second degree, and then I did my PhD also in Switzerland. These opened many doors for me. And as I say, because of a family of 11 and my father having to look after them, he never turned back. He never remarried, of course, it was too many children. But really, we all grew up together and very, very close, and we are still very close today. But what I want to say, I grew up in a small island, Dominica. I never imagined I would one day become the president of the World Maritime University. But I was also extremely fortunate because my first career was with the International Labour Organization. And there I worked for 30 years. And I moved from there after having stepped down from Of course, we had in the UN system, there is a timeline for moving on. And I had the great fortune of being asked to run the World Maritime University. And I have been the president of this university for the last almost 8 years. Next month, it would be 8 years since I have held the office of the president of the World Maritime University, which is a university that belongs to the International Maritime Organization. So therefore, I report to the Secretary General of the IMO, and therefore because the university is an IMO university. My father had to ensure that he looked after all of his children. And one of the things I wanted to do was to get my PhD. And my dad, I was concerned by the fact that because we were so many, he wanted to have us as close as possible, but then he changed his mind. And so I'm very happy that he did. I had the great fortune to work for the International Labour Organization, where I worked for how many years? Many years. In other words, there is a deadline, and from when I was stepping down from the International Labour Organization, I put out my hat to run the World Maritime University. Of course, it was a competition, and I won that competition to head the university. And I'm still heading this university until today, but I will be stepping down at the end of June. I have also, in taking that decision, also taken a new decision. And the new decision I have taken is to run for the office of Secretary General of the IMO. I'm a bold lady. But what I am saying is that I feel I have had so much that I have been able to achieve, the opportunities that have been given to me, the people along the way, because my father had to look after all these other children, but he allowed all of us to make sure that we were able to go off to university. And no matter what, whether he had to borrow money, he made sure that all happened to all of us. And so for me, my life's journey is one of giving back to society for everything that I have received, and engaging with all of those whom I know and feel that need help. It is for that reason that I am also fortunate to be able to be at this conference, because of course the pandemic did many things to us, but I am very glad to see that we have so many people attending the conference today, and we are back in business, and the world is back on track. So what I would say to anyone, any young person in that audience, that I could do it, you can. I see a young lady here or there, and a good example, a good representative. And what I want all of us to do is to look back and look around us and see who can we give the next step, who can we help to take the next, take another path forward. We must not hesitate. Education is key, and it opens all doors. So what I want to take advantage of today is to say to you all, thank you for having so many young people here attending the conference, those who can make it, but also those who cannot make it. Please reach out to them. That's my message. That's what I'd like to see happen. I have some very good friends from Singapore. I see the two of them in front of me. They know me very well. And leading the ILO, and now leading the university. And as I say, my next mandate, what I would like to be is the next Secretary General, a woman Secretary General of the International Maritime Organization.
Very good thoughts, Dr. Cleopatra. Thank you. All right, moving on to a little bit of a thought-provoking thing for all of you as well. So I'm sure when you all joined the industry, you must have had a mentor, someone who guided you, who challenged you, and above all, who believed in you. All of you can also think of your mentor. If they're here, maybe you can go say hi to them later on. And in this day and age, when we have more work from home, things happening, so you don't see your peers, your seniors as much, You also have what we've already mentioned, emerging technology like ChatGPT, AI tools, where if you ask a question, you get an immediate and accurate answer. Are mentors still required? And if they are or they are not, how do you think we could provide the right resources for the younger generation to when they're entering the workforce? So I'd like to ask Puneet first to attempt this, please.
Yeah, I have been very, very fortunate that I've always had amazing mentors, and I continue to learn even today. I'll give you a very simple, small example. Yesterday, I was at one of the events of Singapore Maritime Week, and I met the chairman of the Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport here, Mr. Karamjit Singh. I've never met him before, amazing person. He told me that he explains to people who get confused about supply chain, saying that, do you have cooking in your home? And I said, how does that work? He said, simple. Does your wife go and buy groceries from the supermarket? That's procurement. Does she store it in your fridge? That is storage and warehousing. And do you actually cook it and process it and eventually eat dinner on a dinner table? That's distribution. And you have a supply chain in your home, and you'll never forget that example to understand how critical supply chains are. That's simplifying it, but I will remember that example for the rest of my life, right? So lifelong learning is basically because mentors help you clarify things, because they have been through so much experience that they're able to distill things in a very simplified way across to anybody and everybody. That is what the beauty of it is. I'm a big believer in mentorship, and this is something that I'm very close to my heart, is up there. As I said, I have family in shipping. Bengti knows that we actually set up a family scholarship with active mentoring 6 years ago for Singapore Polytechnic students. I'm very, very proud that one of our mentors is right there, Joey. And it's great that she gets an opportunity to not interact just with me, but with all the network people that I have, and I'm learning all the time, and so is she and other scholars. So mentorship will never, never be something that will go away, ChatGPT or anything else. It's about people at the end of the day and relationships that you do. I just mentioned, I met two of my mentors at the same conference yesterday, and I said, more than learning consciously from them, it's the subconscious learning that I've had by seeing them interact and react, and also see how they have behaved with the counterparties and people in the industry. I have built my own personality using that mentorship and experience. So it's super valuable, and nothing can replace it, according to me. Nothing. Yep.
Thank you, Puneet. Hui Ting, your thoughts?
So I think for me, I think like definitely ChatGPT and everything really helps. Like I think it helps me with some of my assignments, honestly. But I think it's more that even with all the information on the internet and whatnot, I think when you're first starting out in the industry, you don't really know where to actually search or what to search. I think, for instance, when I first started out in university, I didn't really know about all the different opportunities or kind of like programs like Global Maritime Internship Award. I didn't know about the different maritime roles in the industry. And I think how I actually like found my role was I just simply like went on LinkedIn or Google, and I just write that maritime internship, and I just applied for everything available. And at that point in time, what that did for me in year one was not lend me an internship at all. But when you compare it to now, the juniors that I've actually encountered in the Maritime Youth Ambassador Program, it's really different because of the mentors that they have. And maybe just a little context about what the Maritime Youth Ambassador Program is. It's actually an initiative that's done by the Maritime and Port Authority of Singapore, where they kind of like take in about like 20 people, 8 youth ambassadors every year. And our goal is actually mainly to kind of like champion the maritime movement among our peers. But at the same time, I think we get a lot of perks in the sense that we get to go for a lot of networking events to meet industry professionals, like everyone here for me today, as well as kind of like getting to know more about the different roles. And I think what this has done for my juniors, our junior MYAs, is actually the fact that they know a lot more about the different roles, as well as the kind of programs and opportunities that they can apply for, which is really a lot of a head start compared to what I had back in year one when I started out in university. So I think this was also quite a big highlighted thing that was mentioned in the Maritime Youth Forum this year in about like February, where I think a lot of peers that I spoke to actually mentioned about how important mentors were. And they mentioned how a good way to really kind of prepare the youth for the future would definitely to actually maybe possibly in the future have a specialized mentorship program for maritime roles in the industry. And yeah, that's basically it.
Okay, so there you have it. Mentorship is required. So please do volunteer your time to become mentors as well. I'd like to move on. We have often heard that the jobs of the future don't exist yet. That doesn't mean that jobs won't exist in the future. But so how can the youth entering the maritime industry and even the young professionals that are already here, how can they better prepare for these jobs if they're not there yet? So how do they keep their skill sets up high, and how do they keep themselves resilient to disruptions in the industry? Do you believe that there are any skill sets that are completely undisruptible for this industry? Perhaps, Dr. Kenneth, you can take this.
Thank you. I think it's a very important question because as we know, ChatGPT, for example, is able to get a bar exam clear, right? So, and that's ChatGPT 3. If you go into 4, they could probably score much better in a bar exam. So I think the question right now is, are there specific skill sets that our future talent need to equip themselves? And I think we can't pinpoint to specific, but we can group them, like what we hear this morning in the panel, into soft skill and also hard skill. So usually we define that as a T. Traditionally, we would like our student to have a very narrow T. That means very deep in their knowledge, be it in engineering, technical, finance, business, accounting. So these are the knowledge, the hard skill. But increasingly, we realize that it is very important because of all this technology disruption. It is very important for our future talent and even for those who are already in the industry to expand the T. So what we meant by the T, expanding the T, are soft skill. Increasingly, it is important for us to make sure that we are able to think critically, so critical thinking. Design thinking approach, that means understanding what is really needed. Next, we are also looking at communication because no one can monopolize information anymore. So in order to get fast and get it right, we have to collaborate. So therefore, communication skill is very, very important. And last but not least is digital literacy. I think I was just meeting up with one of my mentees, in fact, just 2 nights ago. So he's doing really well, and then when he said, let's have dinner, so he said, can we meet opposite NUS? I said, so what are you doing? He said, I'm learning Python. So I said, oh, very good. So it's a 3-day crash course for him to learn Python. And he's already a director of a design office. So a lot of us question, why do you need to learn? So the question the way he answered me is that he said, curiosity. You must be able to learn yourself in order to guide your staff. So I thought when Punic mentioned at the very start of your introduction, lifelong learning, I think that is going to be crucial. And just to share with you, Minister Chan Chun Sing has reminded the university in Singapore, because we are known as IHL, Institute of Higher Learning. You know what he'd like us to be? He said, please be Institute of Lifelong Learning. So don't just train the student for pre-employment, but make sure you train them for their lifelong growth. And I thought that is important. Yeah.
Really lovely. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kenneth. Dr. Cleopatra, what do you think are the skill sets?
Well, yeah, thank you. Yeah, sorry. Well, there are a huge range of skill sets. But one of the things that I have been thinking about for a very long time, and it related to the significance today of technology, the automation that is taking place, and the future of work. So when I look at that, I think that it has to be for us to talk about, opportunities and jobs. we have to think about a broader picture. And that is where I see something, and I have been looking to the future in terms of thinking about 2040. Where are we going to be? Where are we now? And in 2040, where are we going to be? And what are the elements that we need? In other words, what are the new areas, the new skill sets that have to be in place if we expect, we all are expecting the next, the next few years. So I have composed and established a program on the future of work. Automation, technology, and that work itself, what the workplace will be looking like in the next few years. We already see, of course, what happened to us with the pandemic and how we had to adapt very quickly if we wanted to ensure that, of course, luckily, we have been able to survive and get around the issues that we have all just met and therefore had to work with until now. But really what I want to send and to ask you to do is to ensure that we prepare our young generation for the future skills, the skill sets that we have to find and have in place so that all of these young people who are expecting us to ensure that they have jobs for tomorrow, but they need the skill sets and the right skill sets to enable them to take this on into the future.
Thank you, Dr. Cleopatra. Aaron, what is your perspective, perhaps from the seaside?
Yes, thank you. So my perspective from a seaside, I wanted to share maybe three examples. What I have learned from the last decade of sailing at sea, first thing is keeping an open mind. Keeping an open mind allows you to receive information, allows you to work with people from a different background, whether is it a captain who is a very senior in rank, who has many years of experience, and even working with people like our cadets who have just come into the maritime industry. I believe if you keep an open mind, you will be able to pick out good and valuable lessons that each and every unique person can offer to the team. Especially when we are talking about seafaring, the ship has only about 25, 26 crew running. We are like a family. So being in a family, keeping an open mind is very important. Second of all, I want to say is what most of the panelists has been talking about, the passion for continuous lifelong learning. Like one of the phrases our late Mr. Lee Kuan Yew has shared, change is the very essence of life. We have to adapt to all the changes. How you're going to adapt to these changes is keeping yourself abreast to the latest developments such as digitalization, decarbonization. You must know what is going on. And also very importantly is to develop skills. Skills, like what everybody has mentioned, hard skills, soft skills. But personally, I think soft skills are what makes yourself a different person. For example, communication, like what Dr. Loh has just mentioned just now. Communication is not just about speaking clearly, conveying what you want people to know. Communication is also about active listening, listening to what your peers, your team have to share, observing the body language, observing the surrounding that you are communicating in. And third of all, which I feel very importantly, is sharing. Sharing your best practices, sharing good points, sharing valuable lessons that you have learned over the years with your peers in the same industry will enable you to be resilient to the changes and any disruptions that may come. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Okay, so from what I hear from everyone is basically, my goodness, I didn't silence my phone. Okay, so from what I hear actually is lifelong learning is immensely important. So I have a question for you, Puneet. Do you think the onus of this lifelong learning, this reskilling, should this be on the individual or on perhaps the company that they're employed in?
Yeah, so this is a very good question, Akansha, because in my mind, this is one of the biggest challenges that the industry actually has. We talk about the fact that the talent needs to be ready for future of work. We talk about the fact that we need to retain talent, we need to attract talent. Can you imagine a professional industry like shipping, which has trillions of dollars worth of deals being done, does not have a mandatory entry qualification for commercial shipping? It doesn't have a CPD, which is mandatory. I mean, any other profession, whether it's a legal profession, medical profession, it has CPD. It never stagnates your knowledge. I'm a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Shipbrokers. I became a fellow in the 1990s. There are other fellows who are fellows since 1970s. There are fellows who become in 2020. The level of knowledge and understanding is very different from each other, but our qualifications are exactly at par with each other. We are all fellows. Where is the upgradation of knowledge? Without the CPD, it becomes a big challenge to attract and retain talent. Other industries are offering enough potential for you to keep yourself progressing and continue to upgrade your knowledge skills. If that onus goes on individuals and the companies do not promote this, like Minister mentioned in his opening address, a company training committee, CTC, fantastic initiative. That's the kind of thing, but it has to be accompanied by CPD initiatives. Bodies like ICS and universities and others have to devise ways by which we cohesively try and bring CPD into the shipping industry. Without that and without creating an economic benefit from the companies have to see that this is going to benefit them to try and continuously upgrade knowledge. I remember a quotation, reading a quotation many years ago, that knowledge is basically acquisition of information, and intelligence is basically the ability to use that information to think and reason. So your qualifications are exactly like acquiring knowledge, but the intelligence part comes because you think and reason through continuous professional development. Without CPD, we will have a big challenge attracting and retaining talent in the maritime industry. The youngsters want to learn, they want to progress, and they want to keep their knowledge updated. They have the passion for lifelong learning, but are we giving them the ability to get that lifelong learning? I don't think so. So it must be a time now that we have got the tools, the technology, talent, trust, everything in place. We must change this industry and create CPD as an integral part of getting the industry up to the 21st century and beyond. Seriously, this is needed. I feel very passionately about this.
I know, I can feel your passion. I think the audience can too, but thanks for your good thoughts about this. Thank you. So now moving on a little bit about hiring practices, DEI. There are many agencies, there are many research bodies that have done research about, like Gallup and Pew Research Center, that have done studies that indicate that the youth may value different things in an attractive career vis-a-vis the older generation. Like, other than offering maybe competitive remuneration, what else can companies do to perhaps adopt more inclusive hiring or promotion practices to attract young talent to join and to stay in maritime? I'd like to start with Hui Ting, actually. I'd like you to answer, what is it that you look for now, other than LinkedIn and finding all the internships? But what do you look for now in a company?
I think, so currently, because I just kind of graduated, I think a lot of my peers and I are actually looking for a job. And I think most of us actually look for one common thing, which is growth. And what I mean by growth is like a really good starting point for us to secure our future roles that we want. And I think what I would deem as maybe like a good starting point would be a place with, I guess, a good boss. But usually, more or less, you can't really know that. But the next option is having a place that can provide you with the technical skills as well as kind of the soft skills to continue to stay relevant as well as wanted in the industry. So I think for me, if I were to kind of recommend a way to kind of make the industry or job more attractive to the youth, I would say it's really to make the company younger. Okay, wait, but this doesn't mean like make the people younger in the company, but I mean more like portray the company to be something that's younger. So I think a lot with what's going on with digitalization and sustainability, a lot of new roles as well as transformed ones are coming into play. And I think the ability to kind of portray that to the youths can actually make it more attractive for them to join in, as it shows that the company or the industry is actually keeping up with the times. And yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Waiting. We can also try to turn back time for many of us. We don't mind. Okay, Dr. Cleopatra, how about your thoughts on this?
Yeah, well, my thoughts, well, one of the things I would want to say is, sorry, I'm sorry. I think I have a loud voice. Well, one of the things I would like to, certainly want to take the opportunity, because I see we have a lot of young people out as well in the audience, the World Maritime University, of which I am the president. And this is a university that belongs to the International Maritime Organization. And through that mechanism and the decision that was taken by the IMO a number of years ago, we have educated at the master's level, because the university is a master's, we don't do the undergraduate program, for the maritime sector, and of course maritime and oceans, and don't ever forget the oceans, because maritime is on the oceans, and therefore that's why we also have to guard our oceans, and so clean oceans, quite important. That what the university has to offer is this master's and PhD program. So we don't do the first level. We do that's an IMO institution. We do the second level. So the idea is to equip and educate all young, not so young, but from above, as once you have a first degree, to pursue a career in, of course, in the shipping sector, in the broader shipping sector. And remember, not just shipping, but shipping is on the oceans, so maritime and the oceans together. And through that mechanism, we have a number of fellowships that are awarded every year for students, particularly for students from the developing world, because without that, they would not be able to ever be able to come to a university which is headquartered in Sweden. And of course, the cost of that would be, for many in the developing world, would be impossible. So that is a decision made by the IMO many years ago. I am the current president, from which I'll be stepping down in the next few weeks. But the whole idea is building the capacity of developing countries to engage in maritime and ocean affairs. I know that right here in your country, I know that you all are working extremely hard. You have a very good workforce, but please send some of them to do the master's and PhD programs, because that is what is as we elevate our young people to take on all these responsibilities, we must give them the tools that they need to get there. And I know that in your country, you can do that. So please send us some of your young, talented, growing people who would then be able to certainly become the president of the World Maritime University one day, or the Secretary General of the IMO one day. So all of these things remain open to all of us. So let's work together. And I have to see more. I haven't seen enough of talents coming to us from Singapore. So I'd like to see this coming from Singapore, and send in some of your very bright young people to the World Maritime University, which is part of the United Nations, which is an IMO institution. Please send them to be able to even better engage. I know you're doing a very good job already, but certainly, you have another generation coming up, so please make sure that they get the expertise and the support they need to even continue to do as good a job you're already doing, but I know, we can do more. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. I think you might get applications today. We do have some WMU alumni, actually. I have met them in the last few days, so it's quite lovely.
I have some of that.
Akansha, can I just add very quickly just a few bullet points from my experience in terms of initiatives? As I said, Clavness, probably one of my best experiences in terms of how they involved the younger community. I just want a couple of suggestions. If every company who is sponsoring today Maritime One scholarships agrees to actually have a dedicated person in their organization as a mentor to at least one scholar, that would be a huge change in terms of making sure that they are attracting and retaining talent. Because in Claveness's experience, when we had the internships, when we had the scholars, they eventually became, 90% of those interns became permanent employees, and they are rewarded by those amazing employees who are doing so good job now. The other thing is encouraging the companies to link up with IHLs to try and create more industry-related courses. I teach the geopolitical risks and impact on trade flows in SMU because Prof. Annie came to me from SMU saying the students need to know something more than what they learn from the books. And I think a lot of us in the industry have lots of interesting insights to give to the students, and that will encourage them and bring them to the industry if they are undecided. So these are just two small things which I would like to say, which can actually encourage talent to understand this industry better, appreciate the industry better, and eventually remain. Because once you come in, there's no way out, I can tell you that.
Thank you, Puneet. So actually...
Sorry, can I also add a little
Yes,
bit?
of course,
that's
of course.
I think on the part on attracting our youth to join the industry, I feel the very first point which Hui Ting articulated very nicely, which is the growth opportunity. But I think increasingly companies really need to look at work-life balance. I think if we want to attract the female, to join the industry, we need to be more diverse and inclusive. And I thought it is really important, for us to warmly welcome, our female colleagues into the industry. Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, if I may
Yes,
add my
this is
perspective
interesting. Please.
of how to attract more youths into the seafaring role and get them to stay. First of all, I think very importantly is building trust with their families, because all of us need some kind of support from our families. So by actually engaging not only with the youths, but also their family, will build an environment for these younger youths to be going out to sea. By doing that also, you rest assured these candidates that are coming, that they were well taken care of. The maritime industry was perceived to be something more treacherous, but in actual fact, it is actually very, very safe. We have many protocols in place to protect and safeguard these people. And second of all, most importantly, also to engage the youth via a method where it's closer to them. For example, like TikTok, Instagram, where you can showcase the very different routes, the environment that they are going to work in. Because the new generations of youth coming into the workforce, they want to know what they are working for. They want to have not only they want to know about today, they want to know about 5 years later, 10 years later. You have to show it to them that the maritime industry is like a family where growth and it's a safe environment for you to develop and progress as every individual. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. I think polarizing topic. Everybody had something to say. It was great. So now we're going to Q&A, okay? And I don't think we have so much time, unfortunately. But there's one that I'd like to take. If you could flash it, it's there's a dire need to expose our youth and our students in non-maritime fields to various facets of maritime. Are there exchange programs or short courses with Singapore's IHL? I was going to say IHL, but I think now ILL. So I think, Dr. Cleopatra, this is specifically for you. If there are any exchange programs or short courses with any of our Singapore's institutes of higher learning, the universities, the polytechnics, everything.
Well, what WMU has, in addition to, of course, the master's program and the PhD program, we also have a distance learning program. So, in other words, you can actually do your let's say, we have a distance learning program that is a short-term one and a long-term one. In other words, you can also do your overtime with your master's degree. And so that is been quite flexible. So it is really just me needing to send you and give you the www.wmu.se. The university is headquartered in Sweden. And we have programs in China, 2 major programs in China, but the big program is in Malmö, Sweden. And so we have a very important series of course, we have in the PhD program or in the master's program, we do have for the master's program, we do have 7 specializations. So I want you to go www.wmu.se, and that will take you to a range of programs that we have on offer, not just the core program of the university, but the distance learning program as well. So a lot of individuals who are not able to leave their home to go and spend 6 months, or to spend 13 months of the year, because 13 months for the master's program if you want to do it online, if you want to do it in person, and online, of course, it would take you a little bit longer. But it is a very good program, and I've just said, if anybody would write that down, www.mu.se, and you will find a lot of, including the distance learning program that we have that can be done at home in your countries, and that will also enable you to follow one of those major programs that we have.
Thank you, Dr. Cleopatra. Okay, so I have go ahead for one more question, which is the one with the highest votes. What advice would you give to young people interested in pursuing a career in the maritime industry? So this can be very long-ranging, but I request all of you to just give like a sentence or 2 if you can.
Yeah, I think just be curious and proud both of working in this industry. It's something that is really, really wide, and it has so much opportunity that you would just scratch the surface as you start talking to 10 people or 100 people here. There's a lot to do, and come and join us. That's all I can say.
Aaron?
One advice I would give, it was to go back to the point that I have given earlier, was to keep an open mind. The maritime industry is a very wide scope, ranging from maritime laws to maritime operations and even seafaring. There are many options that is available. There are many supports that are available from the government, from the maritime-related organizations. Do your research, see what you want. Because if you actually go on the Maritime One website, there is tremendous information for you to know what's your career path in each and every role that in the maritime industry actually offers. So stay abreast to all this information and keep yourself updated. Yep, with an open mind, very importantly. Yes, thank you.
So if I were to give an advice, I would say try as much as you can. So what I mean by this is for like youth, just intern as much as you can, because a lot of people can tell you about how the experience will be like, but you'll never really know it for yourself if you don't experience it yourself. And I think that's what made me come to love and have the passion for the maritime industry itself. Yeah, thank you.
The young is really better. She's one step ahead of me. I was about to say doing a lot of internships. So, but before you do internships, what you can do is talk to as many people as possible. I think it is important to extend the network, because sometimes through the network, you are able to find out what is really your passion. And from there, like what Hui Ting has mentioned, to really secure a short internship by taking a sabbatical, because nothing beats trying out. And I think there's a theme in this whole week, which is action, action, and action. So it's important for you to take the first step.
Dr. Cleopatra, what would you think is the advice for the maritime? Just a short.
Well, my advice today. Sorry, your mic. I'm forgetting that she has a loud voice, so she doesn't need a microphone. But I would say that particularly for the young generation and the up-and-coming important young people like her, I think it is really important for us to be able, for the maritime sector, to sort of portray an image of that sector that is engaging, that is dynamic, that is quite expressive in terms of the ability and the options that are available. We have to have options a number of options, and that's the reason, for example, even at the master's level, I have created 8 master's programs within that one, maritime sector, even at the master's level. So therefore, the undergraduate level we don't do, but we help with that with the other countries. But again, there are lots and lots of opportunities, including the distance learning program that you can do online, and sort of make your way throughout if you want to then later on then say, okay, now that I have had this particular program coming from the university, the World Maritime University, where it belongs to the IMO, you can take your next stage the next time and say, okay, I think I'm going to do the master's program and do it online as well, if you think you haven't got the ability to be able to leave home and go for 18 months to WMU. So after 18 months, you have a master's degree. And of course, if you want to do a PhD, that also you can do online or without having to come to WMU. That's also possible.
Thank you, Dr. Cleopatra. Okay, so big thank you to such a spirited discussion. I had said that this would be conversational and it didn't disappoint. Thank you. I hope you all enjoyed as well. I know we're not supposed to make plugs when we're sitting up here, but I'm still going to try and do so. Please do remember about the Maritime One portal. If you're a student, of course, you already know about it, but if you're an employer, you may not know that you can post internships, can post jobs. So please try to recruit people through that portal as well. It's a wonderful initiative. And for the students here, if you haven't yet joined the YES Club, for the young professionals, I'm the SSA Young Executives Chair. So please join us. And this maritime industry keeps you very young. Our definition of young is below 45 years. So many of you fit in. Please join us. And if you have any questions, please ask. I know I could not get to all the Q&A questions, but I'm sure they will be around. So please ask anything you need directly to them. Now, okay, before I close the session, because we are the last people, I would like them to have the literal last word. So now, can all of you just tell me one word in which you describe what the maritime industry means to you? Hui Ting, I'll start with you.
I would say vibrant, but if I can tell a reason why, I think... Oh, okay, never mind.
Sorry, they will have my neck. So, vibrant, perfect. Aaron?
Myself would be family.
Lovely. Puneet?
Lifeline.
Lifeline. And Dr. Cleopatra, one word?
Indispensable to world trade.
Indispensable. There you have it. And Dr. Kenneth?
Exciting.
Exciting. Okay, the last words from all of them. Thank you so much.